Mute. I think we're all familiar with the Zoom, but I'd like to call this meeting to order and we'll go over some basic things. So I'd like to call to order the Town of Wakefield Planning Board for April 13th, 2021. And obviously this is via Zoom still, consistent with the governor's orders suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. The public may not physically attend this meeting, but every effort will be made to allow the public to view and or listen to the meeting in real time. Persons who wish to do so are invited to click on the link if you do not have a camera, microphone, all that stuff. So we know this. This meeting is also being recorded and it will be up on the town website. Usually it's like 2 days, seems to be about right. Let's see. So item number 1, call to order. Item number 2, let's see. Just do a quick roll call on who's here. So Matt Lowry.
Present.
Present. And Joanne Schooler.
Here.
Thank you. Megan Menesali.
Present.
Awesome. And obviously I'm here. And Susan Auld, our awesome clerk, is here. Erin Kokinda, economic and community and economic director, development director.
You should see me when I answer my phone sometimes. I'm like, yeah, I just end up saying hello.
Yep. Did everybody get a chance to review the meeting minutes from March 23rd?
Yep.
Yes.
Does anybody have any questions or comments?
There were 2 sets. Were there 2 sets that went out, or was there one? And
that was my fault. I didn't get them back to Susan, so I had a couple of additions to make under our lake discussion. So that's the second one with the later time. It was like a 9-something time on it. Those were the later ones.
what? So there were additions to it, or what was changed?
There were a couple of things that needed to be filled out by me under the lake. I can tell you exactly those were in a second. Because I kept what I added. So what I added to the meeting minutes under board discussion review of current zoning around the lake, I added the action items in there. So following the discussion, Joanne and Bill Spalding will draft a message to other town boards, committees, and departments and invite them to future discussions. And
Are we supposed to be able to see this?
Nope, I'm just reading what was.
Oh, okay. I was just making sure.
I could share it if you'd like.
No. I was just double checking.
Nope, that's okay. If it helps, I can. Now you should be able to see it. So Matt, what I added, I believe, were these lines right here.
All right.
Yep. More of the action items and what more specific about what we discussed.
All right. I was just kind of curious because normally what we do, the minutes would be sent out draft, and then we would discuss them at the meeting, and then if need be revise them after that. So I was a little, I didn't know what had changed, that's all. So.
Yeah, after the last meeting, I failed to fill in those couple blanks that Susan sent. So I hurried and got them done on Monday. When she sent them out, I noticed it, and that was the draft.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions on the meeting minutes?
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with the meeting minutes, but I was a little surprised there wasn't any more detail about the approximately hour discussion we had. There really wasn't, there aren't too many notes about some of the comments and conclusions from that discussion. Yeah, just that we had the discussion.
Right. Well, we made a decision back when we started to record each meeting to not go into the detail of what everybody says down the line, but to capture what the discussion was about. And then people could go to the video if they need to see more detail.
Oh, okay.
And I believe in maybe Erin, this is closer to what other boards have in their meeting minutes too, versus what the planning board had a year ago. and prior with almost dictated on what everybody said, every line, every word.
Yeah, from my understanding in previous meetings I've had to do minutes for in my old life, as long as you kind of cover the general topics of what was covered, which is what we did here, I think legally that's fine. And what Bill just alluded to, now that we are lucky enough to be able to record the videos, I think people can go back and see. But if, you know, if you'd want to go in more detail, I guess, but I think, you know, as long as we hit the topics, I think we should be good.
Right.
Yeah, you know, fortunately or unfortunately, I think the planning board had the best minutes of anyone. You could actually get a good sense of what the discussion was, who attended and who, you know, what was going on. Whereas other boards, unfortunately, they weren't recorded, or the meeting minutes were kind of light, so you really couldn't get a lot from them. So I think just for us, it is a little change going from having extensive notes to this, which, you know, I understand we have the benefit of having the recording. So, you know, I'm happy for that though. So,
Right.
but
Is there
I
still
can
some
understand
doubt?
how it's a little bit different than what we're used to.
Sorry, Matt. Is there still value in having more detailed notes? Matt, Joanne, do you think?
Yeah, I do.
Or do we want people to go to the video? Like, where do we want that to cross? Because my intention is that with just calling out the descriptions and the action items and the notes, we really want people to go to the video to watch, to hear firsthand.
Well, if that's the intention, then I think for every item, we should have basically a start and stop time. So if someone wanted to see item 4, they wouldn't have to sit through the entirety of it to, you know, if they wanted to jump ahead, then say, so Susan could say like at 7:15, we started discussion on item 6 and we ended at 7:59. That way someone could go to the video and jump ahead to it. Unfortunately, this also gets to the point where this whole system has been built that people have access to Wi-Fi, they have access to internet, they have a ability to see all this video and able to have the time to go to it. So that's one of the unfortunate things about the new technology, is that it's kind of limiting. Even if you don't have the ability to do Zoom, you basically can't join a board anymore, which is not the, you know, the most equitable way to run things, but that's what we're in right now. So.
Well, I appreciate the idea, because I really like, Matt, the idea of having in our meeting minutes, it could go in place of that asterisk, or like what happened as a timestamp. And it wouldn't take much. It wouldn't delay the notes too much either. As I mentioned, it's usually not the next day, but the day after that, that we'll have access to the video.
Well, I mean, there should be no delay.
I mean, you could do it real time.
Yeah,
Understood.
Susan can look at the clock and say, and it doesn't have to be down to the nanosecond. It can be,
Yep.
you know, at approximately 7:17 or whatever, 7:20. I know for me, it would be very helpful for the Board of Appeals, because their meetings go on for hours. And if I could jump ahead to what I wanted to see and not have to keep skipping ahead and seeing, are we talking about what I want to hear right now?
Totally agree.
But.
All right. Any other comments about the meeting minutes? These are great ideas. Okay. So at 7:10 p.m. we, sorry. If someone.
So I'll make a motion to
Motion to
approve
accept.
the minutes as revised.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Matt made the motion. Was that Megan who seconded?
Yes.
Okay, Joanne, And yes, I'm in favor as well. All right, thanks. Let me stop that share, new share. Item number 3, 7:11 p.m. Susan. I'm not trying to be a jerk about it. I think it's actually a really good idea. I don't know why we didn't think about this earlier. So item number 3, 289 and 291 Salem Street as built planned certificate of occupancy. So just to set this up, it was on our agenda last week, and it's been a project that is almost built. The houses are built, it's almost complete. And after the last meeting, the intention, the action item was for Matt Lowry to head out to the site to meet with our town engineer and I believe a representative from the ZBA as well as the builder. And I don't know if Attorney McGrill, you were there as well. Matt also was accompanied by planning board member Megan Menasali. So Matt, how do you want to start this? Do you want to talk? Do you want Brian or I don't know if the developer's here to talk?
I'll give a little recap. So we basically walked the site and viewed all the conditions as they exist, as they exist now. There's been some construction out there. Originally, the site was constructed not in compliance with some of the drainage drainage items that were supposed to be built. The developer then went back and started to make some corrections to them. So at our last meeting, we, I brought up some of the issues that were still outstanding. So that's why we had this meeting. Yes, there was the town engineer, the developer, the developer's surveyor and engineer. Who's not the original one, but the one who's doing the work out there now, and a representative from the ZBA. We walked the site and basically came to a conclusion that there needs to be some adjustments due to present conditions out there. There were some issues with the original survey that we had. I had kind of pointed out that a lot of the grading, the existing additions grading was all on site. There was really nothing off site. So you did not really get a sense on how this site interacted with the surrounding area besides the use of the town data for, how water was flowing and things like that. So it was good to get a sense of what the issues were out there. And with the town engineer, he made some suggestions on what needed to be done. And basically it was going to be, well, he'll explain it, I'm sure, a little bit better. But basically the site's going to be redesigned a little bit to do some new capture areas for drainage. In order to keep this process moving, I told the town engineer and the developer's engineer that, the site plan, the new proposed work that's going to go to the town engineer does not need to get approved by the by the planning board, just because of our time limits, that whatever he thought was best out there, considering what was already built, as long as it was constructed to his specifications, that the board should be fine with that. But he'll probably explain a little bit better. So that's basically where we're at this point.
Thanks, Matt. Attorney McGrill or Bill Renault, do you have anything to add or say to this?
Brian, you can go if you want to. I'm happy to jump in after you.
Okay, that's fine, Bill. I didn't want to cut you off. Mr. Chair, I agree with everything that Board Member Lowry said. It was well stated. And I think everybody was in agreement. It was a very productive site visit. Appreciate the 2 planning board members and town officials and Board of Appeals member taking their time out of a weekday morning to come out and spend a good amount of time out there. And I think I agree that the conclusion was that some redesign work needs to happen. And on the groundwork after that needs to happen. I think at the end of the day, it will probably be a better design than was originally proposed. There was a lot of, the original design had a lot of cross-country swales that I think Matt Lowry had made a comment that the concern was over time that maybe the lot owners would just fill those in and they would gradually go away. And I think the design that our town engineer encouraged out there is going to be more practical and work better in the long term, not only for the property, but for the neighborhood. We're fine with that. And I know our engineer now is working on a redesign for town engineer Bill Renault to take a look at and approve. And then that will be constructed.
Thanks, Brian. Bill?
Yeah, I don't think there's much for me to really add, honestly. Bill, I wouldn't really add much. I mean, I think we looked out there, you know, it really wasn't built consistent with the original design. We
Right.
identified a few changes that I think we get a lot, just a better end product. So they're going to basically redesign portions of the drainage, and we'll review that to make sure it meets all the requirements that we have. So
Perfect, thanks. Matt, I have a question. Did the back stairs on the deck on the building closer to Salem Street come up where they were shown in the plan and facing north and then they were facing east?
Yeah, that came up. ZBA member did not have an issue with that. And actually the grading that had been somewhat worked on since the plan that we saw made the step down there a little bit better. So, one of the proposed changes was to try to collect some of that water in that front, as you're looking at the front right corner, and then pipe it over to the infiltration instead of, trying to have it run down along the building there. There's going to be one collection in the front, right of the lot, and then one in the right side, basically between the houses, that's going to collect it and then again pipe that out into the drainage. So that swale where that walkway is not going to be necessary, or at least not as intense. So it'll still drain towards the front collection area, but it'll be much better. And also in the back, I think we don't know what the design is exactly yet, but they're going to potentially put in a collection pipe to collect that water and put it into the back left corner and let it infiltrate there and sit there. So that's going to fix some of the issues with the walls that are exposed. We've got some soil exposed under the walls. It should hopefully correct that.
All right, any other planning board members have any comments or questions?
So the only one issue is, and I understand how the developer, the issue the developer's in right now. They've got that house under agreement. They need to get someone in there. They were asking for a release and put a bond up so they could get the owners in there and then do the work. Myself and the ZBA member, I believe, weren't really keen on that because of construction going on with the owner living there. Is not the best situation. So unfortunately, and I also, I said if a design came up, it didn't really need to come for approval before us, because at this point, we're not having a meeting until second week of May, or the second Tuesday of May. So there's a long time between now and then to get this work done. So I'm not sure when they're going to finish this, but whenever they do finish it, the only way to move it forward a little bit quicker was to get it built, approved by the town engineer, and then have it approved by us. So it's not going to happen before the second Tuesday in May, unless we have, a special meeting or something. But, I don't know how long it's going to take them to get this done. So
Right.
I understand that, I'm trying to be sympathetic somewhat with the developer, but again, a lot of this is self-induced too. So I want to, work as much as possible to at least the front lot cleaned up and able to get moved into. So I just want to throw that out there. Again, I don't know how long it's going to take to get this designed and constructed. It may be a moot point, but if they could potentially get it done quicker, we may want to maybe consider having a quick special meeting to
Okay.
move on this.
And just so everybody knows too, what Matt's alluding to is we don't have a second meeting in April due to town elections on the same day. We can't hold a meeting on April 27th. Looking at what our next meeting date would be. So taking that into consideration, if Attorney McGrail, if everything is completed on the site and town engineer Bill Renaud does go through and just reiterating Matt, making sure we're on the same page as an action item. What is the process? Do we hear from you, Attorney McGrail, with an approved plan from the town engineer, and then that's going to put it into motion where we could schedule a special meeting if needed for approval?
I think that's correct, Mr. Chair. I think your decision allows for modification.
Mhm.
And I think at the end of the day, what Matt was saying, if the town engineer is fine with the design, we can commence construction with his approval. But at the end of the day, to close this project out, whatever the modified plan is going to have to be approved by your board to have that in the record,
Understood.
that's what the plan of record is. So in the future, the town has a kind of I guess a playbook or a diagram of what was actually approved for that site.
Understood.
It's enforceable. So
So if the town engineers approves moving forward, the developer moves forward, completes it, then once the work is completed, you'll notify us to be able to walk the site with the plan in hand, so we can make sure what the town engineer, what Bill approved is actually completed.
correct.
Okay.
And then you would vote to approve the modified plan.
All right. And now the only thing I would be concerned about in that matter is if anything drainage wise is not completed and it's covered over, like the pipe under the walkway and different items that we wouldn't be able to see visually from a site walk.
I think the town engineer, Bill can speak to that, but in talking with our engineer, his staff is going to monitor as work happens out there.
Okay.
Is that right,
Right.
Bill?
Yeah, so we would either dye test or make sure that all the pipes are connected, because they're going to be connecting to some existing drainage that's already on the site. So that's how we would get that done. I mean, I'd also require them to do an as-built as well. So, they would provide us a design plan that we approve, and then they would go build it and provide us an as-built showing that they built what they approved with the second plan.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would kind of make sure that Bill has reviewed the approved plan and he's fine with it before it comes to us anyways. So
Yes.
there's a lot of checks and balances here. We would be the final release, and it may be just release on the first lot, and the second lot is still being constructed on that. I'm fine with that too. So as long as that gets taken care of.
Understood.
And I'm only suggesting this now because our Zoom meetings are relatively easy to schedule and relatively painless. We're not having to book a room and go to town hall. So,
That's true.
we should use some of this technology for the
Matt, did
benefit of speeding things up.
find a good reason for it? That's awesome.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
was there
Joanne.
any notification sent out on the site visit that the, all of you went on? I didn't see that. Did I miss something?
No, it was in the last meeting. Matt went on there and Megan went on the visit. We can't have more than 2 members of the board go to an event, or it would have to be on an agenda and publicly announced. So when we do have a site visit, in this case, Matt is definitely the right person to send out there. And instead of me going, we just looked at the opportunity to have another board member involved.
Okay, so I visited the site on my own and I saw the owners there looking at it. I thought it looked okay. I couldn't really tell where the drainage problem was, but anyway, for the next site visit, I'd like to attend that if possible.
Well, I'd like to keep Matt and Megan going out together. If one of them can't make it, then that's fine. I'd like to keep that team going so Megan can follow through and Matt can follow through with what originally was proposed. And if you are heading out to the site and having any type of interaction or communication with the owner, it's something you should know that as you're out there on your own as a board member, try not to speak for the board or make any decisions that could have some severe consequences. So if you are going to do that, it would be great if you sent me a message to let me know that you are going. in the
I
future.
didn't talk to the owner. I just saw them out there. I was there on a
Okay.
different occasion.
All right.
So I wasn't there when
Yeah, and I didn't really,
talking to them.
I don't think we're gonna have a formal site, scheduled site visit anyways, so I don't see that happening. We'd have to obviously schedule that or plan it through a board meeting, so that wouldn't happen until we're not gonna schedule a site meeting now.
Right.
The only time we could have a basically scheduled planning board site meeting would be at our next board meeting, whatever that is. So I do encourage people to stop by and visit sites if possible. There is a clause in the state law that allows planning board members to visit sites that are actively, in review of the planning board. So I'm just kind of throw it out there. If you go out to a site and you identify yourself as a planning board member and the owner, the developer tells you to, get lost, you can't be here, I'll just, let the chairman know that, because we will, there are provisions in law for us to be out there and view sites. So, and I always encourage members to go out and take a look at sites and check up on things. I tend to know all the old sites. When I drive by, I make sure that they're not piling snow where they shouldn't be, and the trees are still there, and additions aren't built, things like that. So
It's true. I'm glad you bring that up, Matt. My kids think it's a game now. Why are we driving here again? Where did all those trees go? Yeah. All right. Thank you, Matt. That's it's good to bring up. And thanks, Joanne, for being proactive with that and letting us know.
I didn't understand that it was going to be Matt and Megan. I don't think that was in the meeting minutes either, by the way.
No, it was that we're at two board members. We're going to go out. And Matt was going to lead that.
I remember that.
Yeah, and it was. Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
I do
yeah,
remember that.
and we have had some site meetings where all the board members show up, and it is, but that has to be published. That is an actual meeting. There has to be an agenda. It has to be a posted time. So it is something that we have done in the past. It's not easy to schedule, and but where it's needed, we will do that. So,
Yep.
and every board member will be notified.
Yeah, I think in my time here on the board, I think we've had 3 of those that was scheduled where we all were walking the site. So that does, you do learn a lot from being out there. So very helpful. Any other comments on 291 Salem? I think the action's clear.
So Chairman, I just have one other issue with it, if I may.
Yes, Attorney McGraw?
So Mr. Lowry mentioned the certificate of occupancy issue, and that your board, and I think it's pretty clear that the Board of Appeals is not comfortable with a full certificate of occupancy being issued for that front lot. We discussed the fact that that front lot has been under agreement. The people, I've been informed, the people who have it under contract don't have a place to be. So, they're trying to occupy that property. Interestingly, your decision and the zoning board decision really don't contemplate certificate of occupancy. It contemplates that it has to be built according to the plan at the end of the day. And there has to be an as-built plan submitted at the end of the day to show that it was, which obviously has not been accomplished.
Right.
We've kind of put this certificate of occupancy issue out there because, we understand that, as Matt said, a lot of work is going to have to be done on that property. And before, after the final design is created, and before it's all set and signed off on. And it will be difficult if that front lot sold. I think the concern is, in talking also to the building inspector, if that front lot is sold, now my clients no longer have legal title to that property. And no matter what you sign with a buyer, the concern would be the cooperation that you might get or not get if they didn't like a design change or something like that. So what I had spoken to the building inspector today about was the possibility of seeking a temporary certificate of occupancy that's good for 60 days, can be extended at his discretion without a closing occurring on the property, so title wouldn't change. Just so the people who have that property under agreement could enter into a use and occupancy agreement, and they would have a place to live.
So, sorry to interrupt, but just to keep things moving. So the 60-day temp C of O, would that be signed off by the building inspector and without anything from our board or the Board of Appeals required?
Correct, but the reason I'm bringing it up is in talking to the building inspector, if this board or the zoning board of appeals was not, if that's something that you would not really didn't want to entertain or did not think it was a good idea, I don't think that he's going to do it. And quite frankly, I wouldn't pursue it because we're all trying to deal in good faith here. So,
Right.
that's why I wanted to bring it up with your board. If your board's not comfortable with that, or the zoning board is not comfortable with that, we're not going to do it because we just don't think it'll be the right thing to do, because in the spirit of cooperation, we're all trying
Right.
to get to the same place.
I appreciate your good faith effort, but I don't feel comfortable with that personally, where there are no as-built, and then I see the possibility of us, I understand this possibility of us with that front lot, house lot being sold and occupied, that the work may never be completed, that we need to have done for a proper drainage to the new plan.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying with a temporary certificate of occupancy, it would not be sold.
All right.
And, so it would just basically, the certificate of occupancy basically is on the building code that the structure itself is fine,
Right.
meets all the code requirements, so people can live there. But the property would not be sold until it was all signed off by the town engineer and both boards. But that would take a lot of pressure off. Matt's talking about, and we appreciate, again, the cooperation of the board going out of their way to try to expedite and help. But that would take some of the pressure off because,
Right.
and then quite honestly, the only people that would be suffering would be my clients financially, part from their own doing. But it would not take kind of an innocent party, the buyers who really have no place to live, from just being dragged out.
Well, I'm not entirely clear on a temporary C of O for a residence. I know professionally I've worked with temporary C of Os for retail and restaurants, so they can set up and get things going before they're actually operational. But for residents, it's different. I feel it's different because people are going to be living there, and I don't know how that impedes the work being done. I don't know the law on that. So I know we're listening and have faith in your explaining it, but I'd like to hear from the rest of the board members to see how they feel about, and I don't even understand how to approach this. Are we allowing the building inspector to move forward with a 60-day temp? Or if it's something that in good faith, if we say we don't want it, he won't sign it?
If you in good faith say you don't want it, we're not going to ask him for it.
Okay.
I mean, that's what I'm saying, because,
But-
again, in good
Okay, I'd
faith.
like to hear from the board and see what
Because
they
I don't think that will, the planning board and the Board of Appeals, again, are being, we appreciate the cooperation and the effort and working with my client. So I don't think it will, and that's why I wanted to bring this up. I think, we
Okay.
could just skip over you and say, hey, there's nothing in the decision. We can ask the building inspector for a temporary CO, but
Right.
we don't think that would be the right thing to do. And I would not want you driving by there and saying, how are people living there?
Right, appreciate it. Again, I'm concerned with our board losing power with making sure the as-built is complete as approved by the town engineer. So with the new plan. Matt, do you have any comments regarding this?
I'm not too favorable about temporary CO also, but truthfully, for that front lot, there's not a lot of work that needs to be done for it to get to a position where we can, release the front lot, and we'll hold the back. Obviously, we're not going to release the back lot until that's ready to go. So we have, some say in it, but to me, there's not a lot of work that needs to be done there. So if they can get a front lot design to the town engineer, he can look at it, they can construct it, they can as-built, he can look at it. I still think within a few weeks, we could schedule a special meeting and release the front lot.
Agreed. Just for the,
Chair, if I could chime in for a second.
but here's the lot, and we're talking about just this front lot here. So you can see, if you can see my mouse and you can see the screen, here's Salem Street, the retention drainage pond is here, the back lot, and here's this front lot that we're talking about.
I have a question, and maybe Bill or Brian could answer this, or one of our board members. Do they have a timeline of when they think that this could be done?
Bill probably knows that more than me.
I would expect it to take about, well, I mean, it's the design itself is probably, I'm not on mute, good. Probably a couple weeks from when we met, and then to construct it is probably about the same. So I'm thinking about a month is what we're talking about. But I mean, the town has done temporary COs for residential uses. I mean, we've done it in buildings. I can tell you, I've done it in my career, before I came to Wakefield too. So, I mean, it's not something that's not done.
Okay.
So, unfortunately, it's not streamlined for sure, but it is something that is done, in extreme cases. I think this probably qualifies as one, and I think Brian's come up with a good compromise plan personally. So.
Yeah, I actually have a case in Linfield going in land court right now that there's a dispute on a residential property, and it's been occupied as under a temporary CO for a year. So, it is not uncommon. The building inspector said he would issue for 60 days and then revisit it. If it was close to being done, he could extend it, or he can pull it and say, get out of the house. You don't have a certificate of occupancy.
Okay.
But it's a place, it would just create a place for people to live. And one of the questions that Matt brought up, and Bill, maybe you can answer this. Do you see, because I don't know the answer to this, and again, trying to all get to the same place. Bill, do you see any concern with the type of construction that would have to happen on lot 1 for people living there during it?
No, not really. I mean, I think a lot of it's all just really grading and then tying into some of the existing piping that's already there. So, the design itself, the initial design here is very unique, I guess is what I would say. So I think we're going to get a better run product as a whole. So I think this is the right approach for the neighbors and for the lot owners and, as a whole. I think that this is the right approach. So.
And is there any way that we can ask them to prioritize lot 1's work prior to starting on the work for lot 2?
Yeah, that could happen. Definitely could happen.
Or Bill,
Well, the temporary CO would only be for lot 1 anyways, correct?
right.
Correct.
But if Megan's point, if the priority is to work and complete this work, and then if the people are moving in and living here, it's not disturbing while they're there.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Sounds like the temporary certificate of occupancy would be a good idea.
So would the people there be renters or, I mean,
Basically, it's not uncommon, Matt, you know, when there's an agreement to purchase real estate, sometimes when things come up, you know, title issues or zoning issues, that they'll enter a use and occupancy agreement until the closing, which whatever terms they agree to. But usually what those use and occupancy agreements will say is that a tenancy is not being created. So if they have to get out, that they can't then start asserting that they have tenancy rights in the property.
all right, yeah, that would be my concern if, if they're starting to rent it and then they claim, well, you can't kick us out.
Yeah.
So that would be, one of my concerns, has there been any instances where this temporary CO has been revoked and people had to leave? That's
Not in I've never experienced that.
okay.
So I can't say it's never happened anywhere, but personally in 30 years, I've never.
No, that's
And obviously I would prefer that this work just get done sooner than later anyways.
Yeah, and
having
at
a
the end of the
60
day, I'm seeking this as a possible option. It might not come to fruition with discussions between, the seller and the buyer. I don't know, but I'm trying to create this as a possible option. Okay, so, and
yeah, well,
again,
hearing you speak about it and also hearing Bill Renaud speak about it and listening to the conversation with the board, I think, as a board, we can make a quick decision this evening to allow Attorney McGrail to go back to his client and to go to the building inspector. Do we, if our board is in favor, this is where the weird part is. It's like, we just really need to say we're not in favor, and then the building inspector won't even pursue this.
yeah, that's right. So, I mean, it's almost, I really don't even need a vote because
Right, that's why-
it's not, but I just wanted a consensus from the board because
Yeah.
I did not want to, we're trying to do the right thing.
Yeah,
And be upfront.
And agreed, and hearing from Bill and just this conversation, I guess I do feel comfortable with the certificate of occupancy where it won't hold any thing back for any powers back from our planning board if something did go wrong with the design and it wasn't completed and we're talking about June and July and it's still not completed. I'd hate for it to go that far, but hearing Bill say that 2 to 3 weeks, really 4 weeks total for all the work to be completed, that seems fine for me. So changing my mind after listening to be fine with you approaching the building inspector for a temporary certificate of occupancy. I don't think we need to take a roll call. Again, it's not a vote, but does anybody not feel comfortable with that on the board?
Oh, I can tell you that we are half the equation here too. So are we speaking on
right.
behalf of the ZBA?
No,
Right,
I have to, if your board did not have a consensus of not having an issue with, I have to raise this with the zoning board at their meeting tomorrow night.
Okay, so you are going to bring the same subject up at the ZBA then?
Correct.
And get there. So, and if the planning board was fine with it, but the ZBA was adamant, would you still go ahead with it or?
No,
Okay,
no.
all right,
Okay.
yeah, I don't want the planning board to be speaking on behalf of the ZBA, so, I would be in favor of saying that, I am fine with it on our half of it. And as long as the other siblings are fine with it too, then you can go forward with it.
That's a good way to put it.
And just to clarify, this is just for lot 1.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Actually, it's lot 2, Erin.
Oh, sorry.
Lot
right.
2, sorry,
Me.
lot 2.
Yeah.
I can zoom in a little bit. Good point, Matt. Attorney McGrail. Okay.
Oh, so yeah, sorry, I was thinking that was lot 1.
It is confusing
Yeah.
because it's up front.
Yeah.
You
That's
think
what I
it is
meant.
lot
Okay.
1, but it's lot 2.
Right.
Okay.
Confirmed. Megan, Joanne, any comments?
No, like I said, I think it's a good option.
Okay. So So Brian, good luck tomorrow night with
Thank you.
our siblings. I like that.
Well, maybe we should take a roll call vote just to make it
Okay.
official.
I was actually going to suggest I could draft something with draft a letter to the ZBA with approval from the board to send it to them in the morning so they have it for their meeting. Do you think that's necessary, Matt?
You can if you want. I believe Attorney McGrail is gonna, be able to express our desires here. So it's up to
Okay.
you, but we may want to just to formally do it, just do a roll call
Okay.
to make sure that.
Let's do a roll call vote and then we can ask Attorney McGrail's opinion about a letter to the ZBA. Matt, how do you feel? And this isn't a motion, right? This is just.
Yeah, I'll
Do you want to
make a motion that the planning board is amenable to a temporary CO for lot 2 for 60 days. As long as the ZBA is also feels the same about it.
Yeah, and that the lot would not be sold until final certificate of occupancy is issued.
Yes, and the lot will not be sold until the final CO is granted.
Because that's what I represented to your board. So I want that in there because I won't want someone doing an end run on me and having that happen. So
I'll second it.
Thank you, Megan. Roll call vote. Matt made the motion. And
Yes.
yep, Megan, second.
Yeah.
Yep. Joanne,
Yes.
and for me, yes as well.
thank you.
I think the motion's enough. Attorney McGrail, do you think you need a letter?
I think I'll be fine. I think I can
Okay.
represent, Mr. Chairman, that the board voted, your board now voted
Okay.
to authorize it
I agree.
in the
Okay.
terms. I know
Now
you're
that we
very
made it, I
busy
feel
and I
comfortable
appreciate
with
the
it
time
too.
tonight, so I won't want to trouble you with that. I think I can handle that.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you, board members.
welcome. Appreciate the time and all the explanation on this. This is it's good to work through something. Okay, thank you. Let's see. That's not what I wanted to share. If I share my whole screen, I can flip back. Just when you think you know Zoom, a new version will arrive. Okay, can you all see the agenda? Item number 4, 7:48 p.m. Board discussion, review of current zoning around the lake. So this is a continuation of the discussion that we had at our last meeting, and thinking of, stop the share for a second and open up lake analysis, meeting minutes. So give you a chance to look at what Joanne and I, with some help from Erin, drafted and sent out to a few other boards, committees, and I can't find my Zoom controls. All right. I almost closed the meeting. I'm glad it has the extra box that clicks up. Do you want to close this meeting? That would have been good. Matt, that's why you're the co-host.
All right, I'll be ready to jump in and close the meeting right after you. So.
Hey, that would be fine. Yeah, sure. Okay. This is following our meeting previous to the last meeting. Joanne and I got together and discussed what do we want to send, and we shared so much information. So what we did was we narrowed that down to how our board discussed it: protecting the lake from overdevelopment. So we thought of these words: improve, evolve, enhance. Preserve views and support open space, public use, events, attractions. But it was about, the question was like about the views. Where's the view from? So that was a good topic that we can keep reviewing and discussing. Keep safe the people enjoying the lake. And this is where maybe the DPW, walking lights, rest areas, water fountains that are there. That could be more. Control pollution. And Bill, this is why we invited you as well, because I know you already have some plans going on for this. So we have a couple bills here. Bill Renault, I see you. Bill Conley, welcome. So possible future actions discussed by the board, proposed zoning bylaw changes around Lake Quannapowitt. Change the business. Oh, sorry about the difference in I didn't notice the 1AB there. That should have been over. Business and limited business to neighborhood business, meaning when business and limited business are rezoned to neighborhood business, the height limit is 35 feet and there's a lower density. Or thinking about an overlay district, meaning limit specific areas to 35 feet height and lower density. And that we discussed that at the last meeting, where it couldn't really be justified as a distance from the shore or the lake. Matt brought up a good thing. It's like, where do you measure from? And I think what we discussed, and Joanne and I discussed a little bit more about, is, well, if it followed the railroad tracks down along North Ave and then went out to Elm Street and then encapsulated the areas that we're most concerned about. So we could use streets and properties as that overlay district. The other option, the possible future action, support efforts for future master plan. So we want to make sure this will support any efforts. So if there's a master plan, Erin is reviewing grant options. The last master plan was in 2003. So we feel this inside here somewhere would be the actions that we can take as a planning board moving forward. So with that, we wanted to include a bunch of boards, committees, all that. So we were looking at, like, who do we include? So this went out to the Conservation Commission, including the Environmental Sustainability Group, including the Friends of Lake Quannapowitt. Also, we sent it to the ZBA, to engineering, to DBW, and we really used a lot of the email connections on the town website, as well as Erin helped with some other emails for some departments at town hall that would help. Joanne, Erin, am I missing any part of this?
You're good.
Okay, thanks. Trying to think if I missed anybody. I feel like I am. Okay. So a lot of what we spoke about in the discussion at our last meeting was, what about these areas, and that the zoning map is a little inconsistent to what business is around the top of the lake. So here's the lake here, here's the limited business, and then the business and neighborhood business across the street from the lake. And it just helped to have the satellite map too, so you can see the areas. That was one area that we looked at. Another area, as it hooks around the lake, moving southwest, you can see this area, limited business, and then the business across, the two new apartment buildings here. And that 60 just represents the height limitation there. This is the area that I was most concerned about. Vets Field, North Ave, Prospect. This area is zoned as business, meaning a 60-foot high possible special permit granted through the ZBA from the laundromat to the auto shop along this area. So this is one of the areas that, if we were to discuss rezoning business to neighborhood business, or some type of Elm Street, North Ave to a certain point. And you can see here's the satellite area. And this was just put together because the Wakefield Municipal District in this area doesn't quite reflect what's happening with the business district going across here. So it was just really pointed out that maybe the map shows two different versions and a possible place that we can clean up the zoning map. So that was the 3-4 minute review of what we discussed last week. Of course, we at this point wanted to invite these other boards and committees and departments, because we don't want to do this alone. We really want to see this as a proactive approach to protect the lake. And the word protect means different things to all of us. So Bill, I would love to hear from you, and Bill Renaud, I would love to hear from you on what plans that you have to protect the lake in an environmental way, because I know there's stuff going on.
Sure. So the town council asked me to chair a clean lake committee about 2 years ago, where we developed about projects basically focused all on water quality around the lake. One of the things actually included a potential overlay district, looking specifically though at stormwater enhancements for anybody that would contribute to the lake. So anything within that watershed, which is a little different than what you were talking about zoning changes and overlay districts, looking at like kind of more of a heightened view type component. So those are all things that we've identified. We haven't met for about a year or so at this point. We identified a bunch of priority projects and have been really focusing on moving the top 2 or 3 priority projects, Main Street being probably the most important one. And then some other stuff in the lower common area as well. So, and going after a bunch of grants as well. So that's kind of been our focus. So I would say really, we look at it from a quality standpoint. That's really Public Works' main focus. Through our NIPD's permit, we're required to do it. So we've kind of been a little ahead of the game and some of the permit requirements that we'd have in a few years to try to look at the lake itself. So that's kind of what we've been doing in Public Works area in the Clean Lake Committee.
Thanks for that quick synopsis. That was so efficient. Thank you. Because I know it's a lot very complicated, and what you've been working on with the water quality is super important. Thanks. Any board members have any questions? I'm sorry, Bill.
No, I was just going to say, I did see a lot of that you had a few questions on the municipal land. I mean, so just keep in mind, all of that is protected land. So it is what we would call Article 97 land. So there's nothing that can happen to those without at least a vote from the controlling entity in the town, and then I believe it's a 2/3 vote at the legislature to get it out of that, to do anything with it. So that includes the lower common, all those little blue strips you were talking about. That's all protected town land. So, I think that's something to just keep in mind. So as you're looking into this, I wouldn't focus as much on the town lands per se as much, because I don't think you're really going to issues with that. So as you're focusing it, I would start to maybe think about, a step beyond the town-owned portions.
Yeah.
That's
And
great
Bill,
news.
Can you scroll up, Bill Spalding? So that land right there, that's where that little patch right there, that should be part of the Wakefield Municipal District.
This patch.
Right, yeah, shouldn't it be?
Yeah.
Because when you look at the
Yeah, it
map,
is.
it says Wakefield
Should be.
Conservation
Mhm.
Commission.
Yep,
So
that's town.
yeah, so we might want to, I'm going to go back and look at that to see if we can make some changes.
That would be great. And this is part of our goal, is to clean up what's happening. So when you see one map that shows this, right from our zoning maps,
Mhm.
then you see the overlay not including this area. To me, it seems like, well, that would be left as, sorry for the quick scroll, that would be left as business.
Yep.
Mhm.
Or municipal owned, or there's a couple of ways you can do it.
What's the process for putting land into municipal overlay district? Is it simply someone coloring in a map, or is there an actual process for it? Because if it wasn't actually brought into it, then whatever that process is, we need to go through that. So
it would be, you'd have to look at the deed for each of these pieces of land. I just happen to know a little bit from doing some research for Quinnipiac Parkway project, but I mean, there were different takings at different times, and
Mhm.
how these strips of land were conveyed to the town. So it all depends on the deeds for each of those and how that happened. So as long as it's in some type of protected, either environmental protection or a conservation restriction, any of those types of things, that's what I'm talking about. So that hits where, essentially the town can only do certain things with those pieces of property, and we wouldn't have the ability. So for example, a new public works facility, we couldn't take Vets Field and say that's going to be the new public works facility and, try to get some support to make that happen. It would be, essentially there would be a review from the Conservation Commission, because I believe they own that parcel of land, if I recall, or at least that was given to them at some point.
And we're
And
still
then you
talking about
would,
this piece right here.
Oh, but I'm saying just in general, I'm just
Oh,
saying
just in
generally
general,
how
okay.
it all works. Yeah. And so we wouldn't have an ability to really throw a public works facility on that and make that happen unilaterally. It's not like you have to zone that to stop it from happening. There's a bunch of other protections statutorily through the state that stops that from happening.
So,
So as you're looking at this, I would focus a little bit more on, I think on if you're thinking of view sheds and that's your concern, I'd probably focus maybe a parcel or two beyond from the municipally owned
Okay.
areas.
okay, so basically, if the town purchases the land, it can automatically be put into a municipal overlay district? Is that if they own the fee to it, or?
Well, typically the way most
Did we lose Bill?
Yeah, I'm just confused why that little parcel of land isn't in part of that map. So I understand what you're saying, Matt, is what procedure do we have to take, or why was that property not included? Is something I can look into, but maybe Bill, if he comes back,
Yeah.
I wish I had more historical background on why that wasn't included, but that's definitely something we could try to figure out, why that isn't there.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that, a map gets updated to automatically include something when
Yeah, no.
potentially it should, I know it said clean up things, but there's a whole process to go through this, and I'm really, I want to make sure that the process is followed, that's all.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, can I lend my expertise on this? That
Yes,
might
I
be
was going to
helpful.
ask
Great.
Attorney McGrail if you had any.
Just to put that in the municipal district, it would have to go to town meeting.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a town meeting vote, because it's municipal overlay district is a overlay district, and the only way you can add land to it is by a town meeting vote.
Right.
Now, Brian, would you happen to know why that isn't?
I have no idea, but the other thing to just be careful about, having property in the municipal district, if you're looking to protect it, is not necessarily the best thing, because the municipal district, all it does, it actually makes it easier to build on that land. It gives the town added benefits under the zoning. It gives them extra relief. It's not as harsh to the town. So
Okay.
a lot of times people think in the municipal district, oh, that's a protective district, but it can actually be, it makes it easier to permit there, but that would only be for town projects.
Mhm.
I just thought that might help.
Thank you.
No, that's good information. And I was going to say the person we would talk to if we were moving forward with this obviously would be town council. Mr. Mullen would have to advise us on the best way to approach it to make sure we weren't handcuffing the town or doing something that we don't need to do. And then we could focus, as Bill Renaud was mentioning, on the parcels that we actually can do something with. So Erin, if you do want to look at,
Yeah, I can look into that, why that's not, I mean,
that would be great. Just so we have closure on it, like what is the space? Is it actually part of the district and this just map isn't updated? That would be a great answer.
yeah, make it easy.
Yep, and it's easy just to color that in and reissue the overlay district map for the municipal district.
Okay, it's easy enough.
Yeah. Well, let's
I have a quick question for Bill Renaud.
I think he's back. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Bill.
I am back. Yeah, I'm having a little bit of problems over here with the internet connectivity, but fire away.
I heard that the depth of the lake has changed recently. Do you know anything about that? Is that true?
News to me. That's, yeah, I mean, we do, it gets adjusted annually but there's one flashboard essentially that gets removed typically in the middle of the summer to help kind of flush it out a little bit more. So annually it'll adjust by 8 inches to a foot. But that's pretty common. That's happened every year.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, because I know in the fall, it's, we have our scouts go down to go fishing, and it's only like 3 inches of water near Vet's Field. You can't really catch anything. It's funny. All right. Any other questions or anything for Bill? Renaud? Appreciate your time, and I know you have many meetings. Mr. Conley, do you have anything you want to share or ask, or you're on mute? You're still on mute.
At least I'm consistent with that mute button. I always leave it off. So good evening, everybody. Joined a little bit late, but I think we're catching a good part of it. We are in support, the Friends of Lake Quannapowitt, in support of the work of Bill Renaud. We're pretty familiar with it. We hope to get more familiar with the work that he's planning. It's really a pretty solid plan relative to the runoff abatement. The lake is impacted by runoff, and we're looking forward to some great success with his department and over time to help clean up the water quality. I guess looking at this, and really applaud the planning board, and Joanne, I think was really quite interested in getting some discussion going beyond what we were talking about, 200 Quannapowitt, and as that came before you, and our ideas on that. And of course, there is movement forward on that, but I think it's probably the next development, and I think we know the area, and I'm not saying that it's inevitable development or it's bad development, or there's no immediate plans, but this is exactly the time to start talking about looking at the whole lake, but also particularly area that may be subject to some development pressure. And I don't think we're predisposed in any way, but I think we would hope that town-wide input, as many people are interested in this and knowledgeable, would be able to come up with, a general plan that would satisfy, whatever it may be zoned for at the time, and it's likely to be zoned for limited business, but also recognize the important nature of the lake and the importance of open space and protecting that open space, and maybe even enlarging that open space or increasing that open space in that area. So we're very, very interested. We hope to stay, engaged in this as these plans and talks go forward. It seems primary to me, that area will get a lot of discussion, should get a lot of discussion in advance of anything that might come before any plans or anything that might come before the town as far as development or change to that property. So I applaud the group, applaud the initiative. We probably in a way kick some of this off with our discussions before you, and we're happy to do that, and we look forward to a good result. I would also like to introduce to everybody in the meeting Margaret Copey. I think Margaret's in the meeting. She will be the new president of the Friends of Lake Quannapowitt in the near future, and she'll be getting a little bit more involved with discussions such as this. And certainly we look forward to her being a great president for our group, and who you've been dealing with myself. I'll still be involved, I hope to be, and Karen Failer, and she'll still be involved, we hope to be. So we look for great success with this group. Thank you.
You're welcome, and I appreciate the introduction to Margaret. And Bill, if you could formally introduce, just send an email to the planning board address with Margaret's email, that would work. That way we have her as a contact as well.
Yeah, I thought she might. Margaret, do you, if she has her.
She is there.
Margaret?
Hi.
Hi.
Nice to,
I
nice
caught her
to,
by
that-
surprise. I
Yeah,
thought
you
it was
did.
important.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. Thank you for the kind introduction. And yes, I would appreciate being on the email list for this or any other things that that the friends would be involved with. And I appreciate that. And I look forward to working with you.
Excellent. Thank you. And I do, we do have a hand up from Brown and Delavope, but before we go to that, I just wanted to see if any planning board members have any questions or comments for Bill Conley or for Margaret. If there's anything that questions or concerns. And before we do get there, I think we spoke briefly about it, and I apologize if this was in the meeting with Joanne or if this was in our meeting last time, I'm forgetting. But we're hoping to have something together in a solid plan that could go, if there is some type of action for the town to vote on, it would be for the fall town meeting. And I can't remember if it was in our last meeting or if it was in the meeting with Joanne, but that would be a good timeline. Obviously, there's no chance for this meeting, but if we were going forward. So I just wanted to open up to any of the planning board members if they had any questions or comments for the Friends of Lake Quannapowitt. I don't have any questions, but I do have one, so I don't hear anything. But thank you so much for spending the time, Friends of Lake Quannapowitt, with Cabot and Cabot, the developer, just to pull together a compromise for that plan. I know it took a lot of work and a lot of meetings, so thank you.
Well, that's appreciated, Bill.
Yep.
Yeah, we have reached an agreement. More details will be become available, but all in all, we're pretty happy, and we were happy with the people we were working with. Attorney McGrail's in the meeting tonight. At critical times, he was very, very helpful. And we're, looking forward to a successful development down there. And even in terms of the town, I think it'll be successful given all the circumstances. So we're thank you for the recognition to our organization. It was really a organization-wide amount of work we had to do.
You're welcome. And I think that that gave me the bug to do something about this, or to put it at the top of the list of our proactive initiatives. So it's good. Any planning board members? Any comments? I just want to. Nothing.
For the Friends of the Lake, or for the continuing on discussion on this proposed?
Well,
changes?
continuing on, I do. There is a hand up, but I wanted to make sure planning board members had a chance to speak before we went to any public discussion.
Well, I guess the only question is, so the 35 feet, that's going to be it would be proposed over this entire district? Is that what you're talking about? Or would it be like a stepped, sort of like what the project is that's being proposed now? It's stepped back, so at a certain distance, the first phase is at 35 feet, then it rises from that. I'm not sure what ultimately what the proposed zoning change would be.
And Matt, I don't know what it will be either. I think that's why we want to have these discussions to really narrow it down. But if I had to pick a height, I really like the 35 feet because that's what the neighborhood business district allows. Keeping it as a business, but allowing it to be at the height where when you are at Bettsfield or walking by here, or if you live here on Elm Street or on Cedar or any of these streets, that you don't have a 60-foot tower between you and the lake. I use the word tower. It's not a high rise, so I don't want to use the word tower, but a 60-foot tall building between you and the lake. So yes, Matt, I would propose, if we went forward with a zoning district or an overlay district, that 35 feet seems to be the right height for any of the areas, again, within a certain distance. And maybe it's North Emerson and it jogs out to Elm Street and comes back down along North. But that's something for, as a discussion, to grow and figure out what that overlay district boundary line would be.
Okay, so just so people know, 35 feet is the height of an average newly constructed house. Basically, a 3-story apartment building is basically limited to, that's about that height. So that's what we're talking about. Correct? Okay.
Yep.
Because do we know what the height of the building is at the head of the lake currently, that office building on Corner Power Parkway? That looks like it's about 50 feet right now, maybe, or?
I think I have, I know it doesn't show heights, but I could show, sorry for the quick scrolling. So no, it's just out of play. Attorney, well, you know what? Do we have existing? I don't want to go into the drawings. How high that is it around 50 feet, I would guess?
I'm just saying, just for context, so people, we're talking about views, people looking out, so they could judge what 35 feet is, what 50 feet is, because, across the lake, it's hard to judge
Right.
what these heights are. I think the current buildings, and I was just looking at Street View, the current buildings at Lakeside Office Park are, what are they? They're a story,
They're
2
just
stories with a pitched roof.
2
So,
stories with a pitched roof, yeah.
yeah. So it would be taller than, anything on there would be taller than what's currently there, just so people know.
So Matt, I'm just pulling up the same Street View map, just so I can share it once I get there.
I'm just trying to provide a little context so people understand what is being
Right.
discussed here. Nothing's really proposed, just discussed.
Okay. Little person. Let's see. Can the little person sit here? Is that gonna go? Matt, do you use this view or do you use another app for this?
No, just to use the Street View, the perspective view, yeah.
Yep, okay. So that's the daycare. Looking back out to the set of lights at North Ave. There's 2 stories. If I had to guess, 24 feet.
That's, 12 feet a story, basically, yeah.
Heading down Quanah Power Parkway. And 1, 2, 3, 4. So about 50 feet to the parapet. And that's set back pretty far on the parking garage. Nope, doesn't let me go on the path. I don't know if it's worth going all the way around, but I'm hoping to get to the other side and looking back towards the lake to see the distance from the lake, as well as the height of the building. Matt, is the point to get a good idea for everybody to see what 35 feet might be versus 50 feet and the distance?
Yeah,
We can
I
look at the
know,
height of trees. So I know 35 feet is going to be lower than most trees around. If that's something to think about consciously, and I think about that when you look at a residential neighborhood, when you look around the lake, most of those trees that are up and above the 35 feet, are they above the 50 feet? Maybe. They're probably close to that height.
Can you show the American Mutual building? I think the American Mutual building is only 2 stories.
Yeah, I can't get that close. It's a driving thing. It's like
There's one part of that that's higher, but most of it's
Yeah.
not that high.
It's pretty tall in the front. Those columns go up pretty high. I would say it's taller. Yeah,
Yeah, I believe Bill Conley here. I think that the taller part there is, I think 55 or 58
right
feet.
here.
But it comes out closer to the lake. It's the tallest part of the building. The rest of the building is not that tall, certainly.
Right. So it's a good
The rest of
question,
the
Matt.
building is 2 stories, correct? I believe it's 2 stories.
It's a big commercial 2 stories though. I think it might even be like 14 feet floor to,
Okay.
yeah, level to level.
Yeah, there's a lot of different elevations on that building, but the highest point is either 55 or 58. I wish I could
Yep.
remember, but
And I think that does pop up above the trees when you do look at it. And this is where we first started, along with the daycare center is where it's 2 stories and we figured that's about 24 feet, maybe a little bit more or less. Attorney McGrail's office. And that's 2 stories, right, Brian, with the roof, right? That fits in.
2 stories.
Yep. And the taller ones, the newer ones, which, hey, look at the construction site. Those are up a little higher, I guess, if we drop down here, but this is also further from the lake. So you can see 1, 2, 3, pushed back for 4, and these could have been taller, and then the 3. So there's your example of a 35-foot tall apartment building or neighborhood business district commercial building. If you stacked 2 more stories on top of that, that's where you'd be seeing what the business district and limited business district allows. You think that's about right, Matt, estimate?
Yes, but there's also ways to get it higher too, obviously, is by raising the grade and then building on top of that grade. So
True.
the
My
what I'm trying to get at is, I know in the development that's proposed at the head of the lake, it's basically a step project. So you start at the lake at one height, and as you move further away, you get to a different height. So by having a blanket 35 feet across these, some of these sites, it may be a little too restrictive or overly,
Yep.
I don't know if it needs to be that uniform for some of these sites. So again, the further you get away from the lake, your perspective of it changes. So you could have a higher building and it looks smaller. So that's why I'm a little wary on putting in 35 feet and saying that's it, no matter where you are. So
Agreed. It's a good part of the discussion to understand. And that might help us understand where that boundary is too. Where if it does sit to a certain, again, distance from the lake, where visually thinking about the views, where are the views from the lake, where people are looking, could it step back? And we could create an overlay district that has a step in it if needed. I don't see why we can't. If
Well,
that's what we come to as a solution.
you mean like with a special permit or a variance or something?
No, meaning in that overlay district, if the lake overlay district becomes something where to North Ave, it's 35 feet, but on the other side of North Ave between the train tracks, it could step up if it's in a business district. So there's ways to work for each part of the, or look at each part of the lake and have a discussion about where that boundary would be. And that's what would probably change what height we should look at allowing in each area. Again, with public input and understanding, Yeah, it's almost like I'm walking down the street. It's taking a while. Okay, we're at the gas and light.
Yeah, I'm not sure from a height perspective that being farther away means you can go higher, because you can see those apartment buildings on North Ave across the lake.
Mhm.
Pretty they're pretty obvious. One of them's higher than the other, as you showed. So it's pretty far away. It's still doesn't look the same,
Right.
So,
Can
so
we
is,
can we hear from the public on this, by the
Yeah,
way?
I want to make sure the planning board got a chance to talk about some things before we went to the public. That's all. I'm sorry, Matt, go ahead.
so is the goal here to basically freeze what we see right now? Or I'm still a little unsure on what the purpose here is, what the goal is.
Well, the goal is to protect the lake. And if protect is the word we're trying to define, does that mean create an overlay district that limits the height and density of buildings within that district? Or does it mean a moratorium on any building until there's a master plan? Does it mean no lake district, no moratorium, and it's just something that is looks at I don't want to use the spot zoning because we hate that, but changing the zoning in one place that we see as a critical area, because most of the lake is already residential, especially on, all the way from the northeast side, all the way down to the south, and then it's municipal. So it's really just along North Ave that we are looking at in the very top of the lake, which we're trying to figure out what that land is. So it is a small area, really focusing on what's happening along North Ave that would be part of this district.
But does the height of a building that's visible from the lake, how is that either protecting or not protecting the lake? I guess that's my,
Okay.
when we throw and protect the lake and then we got to control the height, I don't see a direct correlation.
We're looking at height and density, Matt. So with the changing from the neighborhood business, it also changes the density. If there was a special permit to allow for multifamily or multi-use buildings in that area, we would have more control of what the height is. And if the height means it's protecting the lake from views and shadows, and I don't want to get into what ifs all the time, but again, if a 60-foot building was built right on the other side here and the sun's setting, does that mean that this is all shadow at a certain time of the day, especially in the winter when the sun sets in the west and this is getting no sun? Again, I don't want to speculate too far, but that's part of what I'm caring about.
Okay.
But I do want to hear from the public, and I do want to hear from the rest of the planning board before we do go to public. Megan and Joanne, anything to comment on or add?
Nope, I'd like to use my time for the public.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for showing these views and the retrospective heights. I think it's really helpful to see the, perspective. And yeah, I'd love to hear more from the public as well as the, Friends of the Lake, et cetera, as these conversations continue. Not necessarily don't need to hear from the friends tonight. That I know that they've previously spoken, but I'm very curious to see how we progress in our conversations, particular to these business areas that you're showcasing right now on this part of the lake, both on this side as well as kind of across the way from the train tracks. So yeah, would love to hear perspective, especially on those two areas, because I think those are the biggest concerns.
Mm-hmm.
I would be really concerned with something of 60-foot height in this general area, especially on this side of the street. And so yeah, that's my perspective. And thank you again for showing the perspective of the heights, because I think that's really helpful.
All right, thanks. And this is that other area that's right on Church and North Ave, where this is business as well. That was marked on the plans. Yes, and to your point, Megan, this could be a building. It's hard to get the height here, but yeah, it could run about that high along here.
That could be scary.
Well, it could be a beautiful aesthetic building with a community center in the bottom with a beautiful area and a restaurant and a cafe overlooking the lake with step back residences that only shows 3 stories on the street and then steps back. It can be done really well. And that's why it should go to a special permit and really looked at by the Board of Appeals or by our board or both. So that's, again, consideration on how does this work?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let me click on the participants. And I know, Brown, and thank you for having your hand up that long. So when you do speak, please unmute and go ahead and state your name and your address.
Thank you, Bowman Delavobi, 8 Cyrus Street. First of all, I'm very excited to hear that Margaret Cope is on board with Friends of the Lake president. That's very exciting. I know Margaret, and know she'll do a really excellent job. So you'll be in good hands with Margaret.
That's a lot of pressure.
I too applaud the board, and especially Joanne Schooler for taking the initiative to get the ball rolling on the bylaw. I think the bylaw is decades too late. We all know that, but better late than never. So I'm glad it's being addressed now. I do have to say that I would suggest that a lot of this discussion and this back and forth right now could be minimized and maybe even eliminated if the board would go back maybe and define what the goal is for this project. And I think by doing that, you're going to have to look at defining what you mean by protect. Protect from what exactly? I believe that as it is now, and I understand this is all in the embryonic stages, but I think the bylaw is too broad.
I'm sorry, let me just interrupt you for a second. We don't really have a bylaw or anything yet.
What would you like me to call it, Bill? A proposal?
No, a discussion. We haven't gotten to anything yet. We have a couple things on there, which would be a possible lake district, an overlay district. We have a possibility of just changing some of the zoning that needs to be updated because it's contradicts itself.
Is the goal of this discussion to write a bylaw?
It could be the outcome for the fall meeting, but we don't know that yet.
Okay,
It's
well,
really early.
I'll call it discussion then. How's that?
Thank
Is
you.
that good?
I appreciate that.
Okay, sure. All right. For the purposes, I think that this discussion is too broad. And because safety and water quality are already being handled by multiple other boards, that I think that should come under their venue. I've been following the water quality, both the Clean Lake committees with tremendous interest. And I think that this board should take that off this discussion because it's being handled already. If nothing else, this discussion should not do anything that would override or interrupt anything that another a board is handling, such as safety and the water quality issue. So that's my perspective, that I think if those two things were eliminated because they are being handled by other entities, then this board could go back and define what protection from what, and then go from there. So we've talked a little bit too about variances, special permits. This concerns me tremendously.
Which part?
Both of them. Variances and special permits, because as we have all seen in real life, in real time, that in my opinion, too often our bylaws are underpinned, they're undermined by a lot of variances and a lot of special permits. And that basically weakens the bylaw. I'm not saying this is a bylaw, this is still a discussion.
Thank you. That's all right.
But when it comes to that, I think that is there any way that this, if it becomes a bylaw discussion, is there any way that it could limit variances or limit special permits so that we don't run into the problems that we've been running into for the last, 15 years or so?
Yes, I think it's possible that if we do move forward and again, changing that scope and tightening it as your suggestion, which is I think our next meeting, that's the direction we're going in. Inviting the other boards and committees to hear what they've been doing was the goal for this meeting, by the way. So for us to move forward with some type of proposal that really just considers height and density around the lake, which is where it will end up.
Yes,
I think it's about reviewing the current zoning bylaws to make sure they don't contradict each other. And that's a big undertaking. And that's
Yes.
the next step with talking with people like Dan Lieber and a few others that really know, they've gone through that. And there's another committee for that.
yes, there
To
is.
answer your question though, I would have to say that our board would consider anything right now on the table in this discussion from the public, from the experts on other committees and boards to help us understand what protect means. I think if we as a board just define protect, that's not really helping anyone. We're in this stage right now where we're taking all this information. So maybe by our next meeting, which will be the second Tuesday in May, I think we'll have a good understanding what that means as a board. And then we could move forward with understanding with a direction, whether it is a zoning district, an overlay district, or it is changes to our current zoning bylaws, which would all have to go to town meeting in the fall anyway,
Of course,
and would have public hearings so we can get more input.
of course.
Without variances and special permits, they're the nature of how this all works. What we can do is limit what can be approved within that special meeting. So we can put holds on certain parts, and then allow other parts to be approved through a special permit. A variance can always just be a variance. Anyone can go for a variance on a zoning. You just can't change that. So just the understanding of a variance is there so anybody can approach the Board of Appeals to say, hey, I want to do this over here instead of over here. Can we do it? And it goes through the meetings and the public part and they vote on it. So sorry if I'm over explaining that for you, Brownon, but I just want to make sure everybody understands what that is.
No, I appreciate that very
Okay.
much. And I also did want to make note that I very much appreciated Mr. Lowry's illustration of height. That was really very, very helpful. And I think that, as this discussion continues, I see that height and density seems to be more of a focal point, which I think it should be. Very strongly feel that.
Mhm.
But I'm wondering if it wouldn't help to map out just the definition of protect the lake. Is there any way that could be put into the minutes or a discussion at the next meeting or something? Because I really think that would help focus.
I think that's going to be when we get back and this agenda item is on our meeting in May, that will be our focus. What does
Wonderful.
protect mean? Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Appreciate your comments. Any other public? I see Julie Smith Galvin. You can state your name and your address and unmute.
Hi, Julie Smith Galvin, 28 Grafton Street. Also a member of the Environmental Sustainability Committee and Town Council. This is really great. I am so happy that you are taking this up and talking about it. I just wanted to give a couple of different perspectives. And thank you for including the Environmental Sustainability Committee, because we do have a bit of a working group that's talking about open spaces. And so I'm going to encourage them to attend these and get more involved. I also wanted, your discussion around what does protect mean and how will this initiative or discussion overlap with other committees and their jurisdiction. I just wanted to remind you that the town has put together this resilience framework to judge projects. And I think that this would be an excellent application for that. It's very prescriptive. There, you can go on the website and look at it, and maybe it can be included in the meetings. But it looks at projects. It's meant to look at projects that the town is taking on. And I consider this not just a capital project, but really kind of a planning project, and look at it in terms of equity and greenhouse gases and regional collaboration and resilience. And so I think that might be a good starting point to get everybody on the same page. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. And I am so jealous of your webpage. It is awesome. Not your webpage, but the Environmental Sustainability Committee webpage. It is awesome. And I did last week or the week before finally get to take a spin on it. And I really appreciate all the hard work that's in there. It was like midnight before I just kept going.
Thank you. And we have a new Facebook page, which we're just populating. So please follow us. I think it's Wakefield ESC.
Okay.
Thanks.
That's good to know too. It's yeah, and Erin has helped too, because we also invited Rebecca and sorry if I'm forgetting her name, Elaine maybe, to this as well. And Rebecca did respond and say she couldn't make it tonight, but was very thankful to be included and looking forward to future stuff. So, and she did look through the previous meeting in it. So it's really good that we are taking these steps. So I don't want to get into the whole resilience thing, but that's part of my career as an architect too, that we have a whole resilience plans for our project. So it is an important part, and you think you can't do anything, but there's so many small things that actually do help with thinking about possible changes to our climate and how sustainable we can be. So it's wonderful.
Well, and I think the lake is an important part of kind of climate resiliency as well. So
yep, sure is. Any comments? Let's see, I hear Attorney McGreal, or just as Brian McGreal, if you want to lower your hand and unmute and state your name and address.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brian McGrail, 81 Outlook Road. I just wanted to touch base a little bit again on this municipal district issue, because I think it's important to understand it. Do you have the map, Mr. Chair, still, that municipal district map?
Yes, I do. Let me go ahead and share that. Is it okay if I share the one that was part of this, or do you want the?
I wanted the municipal, that map.
Okay, that's it. Okay.
Yeah, and just a map as a whole. So.
Oops, sorry. That just let me stop the share and start again, only because it just flipped to like 3 different screens. Oh boy. Okay.
So I think it's important, because I think it's a misconception that, people think municipal district and they think, oh, well, that's a protective district. And ironically, it's really exactly the opposite of that. And I question why some of these properties in town are even in the municipal district, because the municipal district was enacted back at town meeting on April 13th of 2000.
Yeah.
It was Article 26 at that town meeting. And I don't know exactly why it was done, but what it really does is it designates certain properties in town that are owned by the town of Wakefield, and it gives them special zoning status that they can actually build easier than privately owned land. Town projects could happen there easier with less relief from the zoning bylaw. So what it basically says is, if a property is in the municipal district, then the district it is, what it states is, let me read it. The dimensional regulations set forth in this article applicable to every lot of land in the municipal district shall be the same as the dimensional regulations applicable to the zoning district surrounding such lot of land, except that in the case of a lot of land in the municipal district, which is adjacent to 2 or more districts, the dimensional regulations applicable to such lot of land shall be the same as the dimensional regulations applicable to the least restrictive zoning adjoining district. So that means if you have a municipal zone piece of land that abuts single residence and abuts business, that land gets the business zone designation. So which, I think we're talking about protecting some of these town-owned pieces of land around the lake. I think to have them in the municipal district, it's something that should be looked into because it could actually do the opposite. And then furthermore, it states in our bylaw that any land in the municipal district, variation of dimensional regulations applicable to a particular lot of land in the municipal district shall be allowed by special permit rather than variance.
I can do this too if you want. This was my homework.
Yeah.
So this is the municipal building reuse overlay district.
But that's a different district.
So that, I just want to point that out. This was just made for the Franklin School, I believe.
That's right.
So I don't want this to be confused with the blue district. That didn't work, sorry. I was going back to, thought I was going back. So if the map with the blue areas, so there's two districts that are written very close to the same. The municipal reuse is just for the Franklin School. The municipal district is for this blue area that we're looking at around the lake, correct?
Well, the municipal reuse district is basically a provision on bylaw that prior to the town selling any land, it has to be put in that municipal reuse overlay district, which really down zones it.
Right.
So it's kind of like that has to go before town meeting to down zone it before the town sells it.
Understood.
So, and so that's just a process that property gets put in that municipal reuse district because it's going to be reused or repurposed.
Mhm.
And it kind of gets scrubbed at town meeting or clean before it would go on the open market.
Okay,
But if you could go back to the blue map.
I can
Mine.
find it.
And this is, and I'm trying to give Erin a head start because I know she's going to be looking at some of this stuff. And Erin, I'm happy to share a lot of this information that I have on this.
No, those are the meeting minutes. I've reached the point where I have too many things open to figure out what to click on. All right, I'm going to stop the share completely and just clean up my screen for a second.
So just to clarify, if there weren't a lake overlay district over that municipal district, the more restrictive zoning would apply. Would that be true for that overlay over a municipal district?
I think you would have to state that.
Right.
You would have to say that when you enacted it, that it supersedes anything else. So
Right.
that it won't be
But
a
again,
won't be a conflict. There won't be an argument about that.
Right.
But if I could chime in, regardless of what our zoning bylaw says, if this was taken for any type of conservation purpose or a public park, then there's statute that basically we still can't dispose of it. We still have to go through a whole state process to dispose of the land. And it's a lot. I mean, just because we have a zoning bylaw that says something doesn't mean that we can still, build on Betts Field. That's not really true. So,
But
I
you're
think,
right, Bill.
no, I know. So, I mean,
But-
I think we already have there's a lot of other protections and we could go through each one of these.
Yeah, I mean,
I think the stuff around the lake, it's probably not really applicable in these.
but
in
that
what we're talking
depends.
about.
That depends on how the town took title to those lands.
Right.
Because, Article
does, but I
97 of the
tell you-
Constitution of the state constitution protects lands that are taken for
Hmm.
recreation or conservation that, they protect them. But some of these properties, if you can blow up that map, we don't know how Betts Field was taken. We don't know the history of that.
Oh, I believe we do. No, I believe we do. I mean, we've had to research it, at least the lower common I've looked into.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
know
the
that
other
that
thing-
is Article 90.
The other thing that I
I'm
noticed
sorry.
down here on this map, what is next to Hudson Cove? What is WMLP? What is that? Does that mean Wakefield Municipal Light Plant? Do they own that?
Yes. Yes.
So do they own that property?
Yeah, I think it's probably.
they own
looking
Hall
for a
Park?
sliver. No, I believe. My guess is that it's supposed to be in that little sliver because they own that whole sliver across
yeah,
North Ave.
That's what I thought.
Probably supposed to be in there, just wouldn't fit, is my guess.
And I agree with you, Bill, but
I'm a bit-
I just wanted to point out that, it's amazing to me that all this stuff ended up in the municipal district. You know, because again, it maybe there are other protections and you're probably right, but.
Right.
I
I
just-
mean, I look at this, I would take it with a grain of salt because I look at the Upper Common as a good example. That actually doesn't exist as its own separate parcel. It's actually to be honest, it's actually all right of way.
I mean, at the end of the day.
I think as I've looked at this, you know, I'm not sure what the process was in 2000 to decide what lots were in and out and make this blanket statement doesn't necessarily mean that you can really use it the way they're saying it or to, you know, to fast track a municipal project per se.
I agree with you. I mean, it would have to go to town meeting anyways. And, you know, I think
True,
what happened
true.
was when the municipal district was put in 2000, what it says is the municipal district is a special overlay district which regulates the use and dimensional requirements of buildings erected on town-owned land. And then what it said in 2000, all land shown on the zoning map is being zoned parks, school grounds, or other town property as of the effective date of this amendment shall comprise the municipal district. So that's what the town did back in 2000. They said basically all parkland, all school land, all town-owned buildings, and that's why this blue got put in. And maybe that gap at the head of the lake, Mr. Chair, maybe
Throw away
that
all the
gap,
park.
maybe that gap wasn't owned by is that the Spalding Park?
Yeah,
I believe
so we
so,
didn't
yeah.
own it at the time.
I don't
Yeah,
know
we
when
didn't own
that
that at the-
happened, but if that was after 2000, that kind of answers your question why that wasn't in the municipal district.
So I just went through
Exactly.
and just checked all those properties for zoning, and they're either owned by the park department or there's a
Conservation.
piece by the selectmen or conservation. So
Yeah.
Right.
No, and I'm
Yeah,
not
so the
saying
question would be
anything's
the
gonna happen
selectmen
there,
one
but-
would
but-
be.
Well, hold on, one at a time. One at a time.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but you go ahead, Brian.
No, I just wanted to say, I'm not saying that anything's gonna happen there, but I just, you know, thought it would be helpful to have a
Yep.
full understanding of what the municipal district is in the zoning bylaw, because I
This,
think,
this is a
I
great
think, you know,
discussion.
people that aren't familiar with zoning might hear that and say, oh, great, it's municipal. That means it's, you know, it's protecting it. And it's just really
Right.
not for that purpose. That's all.
And thanks, Erin, for looking it up. And I know once we get to a point, if we need to know exactly how to create an overlay district or what these municipal, we're going to talk to Mr. Mullen. He's gonna need to help us understand, as Matt brought up earlier, like what's the right path, like what's the right way to do this if we are going to do it. So I think this is a great meeting, and I don't want to keep everybody too late, but this discussion has been wonderful to really understand more about going through. So we have Theo, Noel, you have your hand up. If you can unmute and go ahead and state your name and your address.
Sure. Thank you very much. Theo Knoll, 8 Fernwood Road. This is exactly the kind of planning board meetings I think are really valuable. So you know, I want to commend everybody for this discussion because it is looking forward. I think the lake overlay district concept makes a lot of sense. I do think it's, and I think you're starting to consider, like when you're conserving one area, you need to be thinking about the other parts of town too. Because it's important to protect open space in some areas and perhaps on Butler Ave. But that might also, because you know, we're talking about developing and managing land uses, might mean thinking about expanding mixed use or focusing in other parts so that you are also able to balance other uses that the town needs as well. So spot on to bring in other groups and committees and certainly the environmental sustainability group. So it's just props to y'all.
Thanks, Theo. And I know we did have a lot of input from the board just to figure out like where we're going with this. And when Joanne and I met separately with Erin to really just try to figure out what could we present back to the board to get an understanding of what's around, we started digging into the zoning districts and bylaws and old master plan just to see what's available around the lake. So I think we are starting with the most important part and being part of the Vision 2030 movement. I don't know if it's a committee. I think it's a movement. Feels like a movement. And I think being part of that and really hearing in the really hearing in the breakout groups and coming back together from the survey, The lake, the lake, the lake, the lake. It's what came up for every single topic. The lake as the number one, the most important. The memory of the lake is what I remember as a kid. Then it just went on from there to the lake is our economic. The lake is where it attracts people. So we understand we're starting in the right place, but I do hope as we go through this, we do take side notes on other parts of the town. I'm not running for planning board, but when I did, it was based on how do we make Wakefield more walkable? How do we connect the other nodes? I'm just lucky to live on the west side and I can feel like I can walk to anywhere or bike to anywhere. But in Greenwood, Dolbear, like different sections, like how do those nodes in our community connect back to downtown? I think that's maybe the next part. And there's a bike path coming, so we're really excited. It's a great time to be in Wakefield, that's for sure. I truly feel, even with all the controversy and everything else going on, I feel it's an awesome time to be in this position on our board for all of us to help hold public hearings, figure out what's going on. The more people, the better discussions, the more people, the more input, the better our decision making will be. So completely appreciate this. And as we wrap this up, I wanted to see if any planning board members, or Erin, if you had any comments, or Jonathan Chines, you have your hand up. Sorry, I missed that. Jonathan, before we go to planning board comments.
Thank you. No, I actually just wanted to take the opportunity, since you mentioned the Wakefield 2030 movement, which I think I'm now going to adopt as my mantra for it. I did just want to mention, we actually do have our second public forum scheduled for Wednesday, the 28th. So 2 weeks from tomorrow at 7 o'clock. And, I mention it because this has been a phenomenal discussion. And I really am so grateful, Bill, to you and Joanne and everyone on the planning board for putting this together. But I think as we've touched upon other areas in town and other projects, Vision 2030 is really a good opportunity to continue to get some of this feedback, share some of these ideas, and ultimately help us define that vision that we can then use to frame out, a future master plan and other initiatives that may pop out of that. So I would be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to put the plug in there for everyone who's participating in this meeting today to join us for that as well, and to continue the discussion.
Thanks, Jonathan. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any planning board members have final comments as we move on from the discussion regarding the lake?
It's the only thing is, what's the next steps? Where are we going from here now?
Well, that's what I was going to wrap it up with and say I'd like for the board to allow Joanne and I to meet, to take in all this information, to refine what we have, to put together some definitions on what protect means, to share that information back with the board, and to possibly share that with other committees, departments, and boards to make sure we get their input, not from the meeting, but at our next meeting. So I feel our goal would be at the next meeting to have representatives from other boards, departments, committees to help with input and all that, as well as the public. But I feel the next action is for Joanne and I, with permission from the board, to meet again to fine tune all this from all the comments that we have from tonight.
Yeah. One quick
Sorry,
question.
sorry, hold on, Joanne. Matt, does that answer your question?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Right. Sorry, go ahead, Joanne.
Do we have a representative from the Conservation Commission on tonight?
No, they were invited, and I didn't have the chair's email, but we did invite Rebecca and Elaine, who did, Rebecca did respond and said the chair would like to attend for future meetings.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, just trying to keep track of names.
Mhm.
Can I chime in wearing an economic development hat?
Not yet. Megan, do you have anything you want to share?
No, thank you for summarizing next steps.
Okay. I knew you were going to ask that too, so thanks. Erin, go ahead. Sorry.
I know there's been kind of not pushback, but I really do think it's important that there's at least some initial conversations with the business or property owners over there that this discussion is happening. Not even just saying, because we don't have anything in place, but I think it's important that they know that we're looking at this. I mean, the zoning is frozen over there for 3 years. And I just feel like as the more transparent we are with them, the better it best positions ourselves moving forward. I think there's a lot of things that we could work on, as someone mentioned, development. I think it was Bill Conley mentioned development is going to happen. And I think having these conversations not going to happen, it could happen, having these conversations earlier than later, we might be able to assist in, I don't want to say the type of development we want, but I guess that's what I'm saying. I just think that it's an important piece, and I know that's something we've talked about, but something I just want to throw out wearing that hat.
Thanks, Erin. And that is definitely on the list. And I think when Joanne and I got together with you a few meetings ago, we put that as what's next. And that was in our whole group of talking to Dan Lieber, talking to the property managers and property owners, and moving forward. So yes, I think that feels right for our next stage. Yes. Thanks. Well, this has been fun. I am learning so much and taking in all this information. I do try to keep notes as I go along, but Susan is also keeping notes, and we have the recording. So if you did show up late, if you did miss it, please go ahead and look at the recording. This conversation started around 7:48. Is that correct, Susan? Sorry, yeah. You're on mute, sorry, it's okay. That's all right, but it was around that time. So if you are looking at the video, we didn't start this conversation until like 7:44, 7:48. Thank you, everybody. I'm gonna go to the next item on our agenda. Just happened to have there we go. Items not anticipated by the chair. Jonathan already brought up the Vision 2030. I was going to bring that up, so thank you. If you can attend, it's 2 weeks from Wednesday on the 28th. So we're voting on the 27th, 28th, Vision 2030. I don't have any other items this evening. I know I usually have like a whole list, but I felt that we have some time to review some questions that Matt Lowry may or may not have for 200 to 400 Quanah Parkway. As we did all get a chance to review the drawings that were dropped off, thank you, and the revised booklets with a lot of information regarding drainage and everything else. And Matt, I just wanted to see if you had any comments that you want to share with the board so we can discuss this item that wasn't anticipated, not on our agenda, but it would be good to talk about some of the things I noticed on the plans. And if Matt, you want to start, we can.
I guess I can start, and I'm going to start with kind of a rant again that I have no idea why these plans aren't in PDF form, but
thank you.
It's driving me crazy that we keep getting these. And one of the things that's really bugging me is that the inequity that most people in the public can't review these plans because, first of all, their size, and that you need to go to town hall to review them. Whereas if they were PDF, they could be posted someplace and people could actually view them. So that's my first little rant that I'm going to continue on.
Thank you.
My second issue I have with the plans is just that I'm trying to go through and do a good evaluation on them. And I've noticed that the existing conditions plans are just not up to quality standards. You cannot see what the existing grades are on the site. So I have no idea how these were done this way. I don't know if it's something we need to actually bring up and point out, but people that are reviewing these should see this, that you cannot see what grades are on the site. Yet on the proposed plans, you can clearly see the, what they are, what the after effects are going to be. So I've been trying to do some calculations as to how much fill they're going to be bringing onto the site, and I can't determine that. So,
Right.
which is, brings to one of my issues about that we just talked about height. You can build the site up and then build on top of that site. So we just need to be aware of that. So besides that, like I said, I've tried to go through the plans. They're kind of a mess. So that's it.
Thanks, Matt. I had the same issue too, trying to read the existing condition drawings. And I do appreciate that we got full-size drawings this time, and not just issued like 11 by 17 miniature sets. But I do also push the idea of PDFs. And I don't know if Attorney McGrill is still on. I don't see him. I don't blame him for not being here anymore. But Erin, is this something that you have any control over, like receiving PDFs for this?
It's a conversation I've had with Gail, and also Susan was part of this conversation a couple months ago, trying to get it into Viewpoint, but we thought that might not be the right step right now. But I'm going to check in with Tom Mullen to see if we have to follow anything legally, just because of what's in our bylaws. I can't see why we can't, have something that goes to everyone through PDF. But let me check into that and see.
Right. And to Matt's point, I don't think it's just us receiving PDFs. That would be great too, because then you can zoom in.
Oh yeah, no,
you can
yeah.
actually read these contours and different lines in this to understand the different elevations and height. I think if there was a question to Tom Mullen, it would be, can we share them on the town website for everybody to view? I don't know if that's what you meant. But where would it go on the town website? Would it be on our planning board website? I'm not sure, because we're not really reviewing these. It's going to the ZBA. So would it be on their site? It seems like that's the logical place for it to be.
Well, yeah, it would probably be under like projects review, like a tab there where you could have all them and post them there. Also I think it would, for everyone, the public could go there, ZBA, we could look at it moving forward. I mean, I hopefully could get a PDF copy that I could send to all you, or Susan could send to all you. So I think I could help a lot of people. I just want to make sure I know Gail and I had a conversation with things in the bylaws that we're doing it the right way. So
Yeah.
I'm going to send an email tomorrow to
Right.
Tom.
And this, on the professional side of this, everything is printed from a PDF. All records are kept through PDFs. It's not having Merrill or Cabot go go out of their way to send us the PDF. It's just a natural part of the business. All right.
Yeah, I see no reason why.
Yep. Okay. I know there are some other, I did start to get into the new version that was dropped off today. There's so much information to go over and data, but I want to see if anybody else on the planning board had any comments about 200 to 400 Quantipower Parkway before we move on to any other items not anticipated.
Yeah, I agree. I think we do need PDFs. I think it would actually be good to have an FAQ on 200 with some of the common questions that we all had that were not exactly easy to find answers to. Like, Bill, you discerned that the buildings were 150 feet from the shore. Wasn't real obvious from the plans. I too felt tons of paperwork. You're right. I just got another pile today. So it is time consuming, very time consuming to go through all this. If we can simplify it in any way, I think that's a great idea to share it with the public. They're going to have the same sort of questions we have. My first impression looking at the big, huge plans, it looks like 3 huge hotels going up at the top of the lake. I didn't think the design looked really creative from what I could tell, but there was a lot of detail there. So I haven't had a chance to go through the new pack of paperwork that came today, but I do want to spend some time on that as well.
Thanks, Joanne. And I know that what came today, the cover letter from the chair of the Board of Appeals, David Hatfield, noted at the bottom that any input that we have is requested prior to April 28th. We are not meeting before April 28th. So if you do have any comments on this, I think through correspondence, to me, it can be shared to the ZBA. I just wanted to see if this was something that tonight we wanted to take the time to consider comments to the ZBA. This is not the PDF, obviously, and not different things, but when the ZBA meets on this on April 28th, do we want to, I'm sure it's not going to be the only time they meet, but do we want our board to provide the Board of Appeals with any of our comments?
Yeah, I think that was one of my questions, was my concern with the timeline, like
Mhm.
just getting the transportation plan.
Yep.
Today, and then having our only meeting before April 28th tonight. I had about an hour to look through this thick of a document, which was certainly not enough time. So that's my biggest concern is I started to look through that transportation plan, but there was no way that I could come up with some valuable comments in time for the meeting tonight to then share. But I already know that I have some questions just in my initial review of that large document.
Thank you, Megan. And it does, it's nice that Mr. Hatfield also put, the bylaws require that, among other things, all applicable agencies shall consider convenience and safety of vehicular and pedestrian movement within the site and in relation to adjacent streets, properties, or improvements. And B, adequacy of the methods of disposal for sewage, refuge, and other waste, and the methods for surface and stormwater drainage. And C, provisions for off-street parking and loading and unloading of vehicles incidental to the servicing of the buildings and related use on the lot. And D, where is all the snow going? Pushed up against a place that would then melt into the lake with all of the road salt and everything else that would be considered possibly pushed into it. So
Yeah, I guess my question is, and some planning board members might be opposed, but is there a way for us to determine or schedule another meeting prior to April 28th that doesn't fall on election day?
Nope.
Based off our calendar, so that we can get together and discuss all of these plans and answer a lot of questions that I have.
Yep, that's something that can definitely be proposed, and we can discuss it as a board. And if we want to have a meeting, we do have to get the agenda together and out within a certain amount. Starting to get tired. Within how many days? Is it 4 days? 3 days? It's a certain amount of hours. I can't hear you, Susan. 48, 72.
The Steve Mayo rule is 72.
Yeah, so it's like 72 sign language. I thought it was 72. That's something to consider, and I would be open to that as well, because this is pretty important.
So if you wanted to have a meeting the 4th, May 4th, I'd have to have the agenda posted by,
Oh, sorry, Susan. It would have to be before the April 28th
oh, sorry.
Board of Appeals meeting. That's okay. I know it's tough to look at a calendar and think about it at 9:14 on a evening where we probably all worked a lot today and other things. So
If you wanted to meet, I don't know, next Tuesday or Wednesday, I'd still have to have it posted in 2 days. The 15th.
understood. I think just as a consideration, looking at April 28th is 2 weeks away. So if it did happen, not sure what your nights are all about, but next week is also vacation week.
Yep.
For those of us who have kids in school. It might just be me out of this group. I'm not sure. With Erin, I think yours are young, and Matt's yours is old. Sorry, not to get sidetracked. 22nd is a Thursday. That would leave us enough time to review what's here, and if we did come up with anything, at least it's there. It would be, to me, it would be the only thing on the agenda that evening, nothing else on the agenda. And any questions that come up, maybe they're even sent before to Susan, and she can just to me, and we can distribute to the board. That way the meeting can be, or Matt and I, or whoever, if you need to look up more information. Because if one of us comes up with something, it would be great to have a day or two to really look it up and know what our opinion is on it. And I believe the action out of that would be, if we did come to some conclusions that we feel convenience, safety, vehicular, parking, drainage, all that, we would draft a letter to the ZBA, and they would need it before their April 28th meeting. So.
Yeah, I'm available the 22nd or Monday, the 26th.
Yep, it could, I would say Monday, the 26th is also an option. Matt, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, I mean, we could do that. Some of the issues I have about family week plans isn't really going to change between now and then. So
if we get a PDF, it might.
Actually, the existing elevations are so screened back on the existing additions plan that they're illegible even probably on a PDF. I mean, I've had
I had a
magnifying glass out trying to read them, and I'm you know, I don't see how anyone reviewing these plans can actually determine a lot of information on here, because you cannot tell what's out there right now.
Matt, I was even thinking that it was a rasterized plan. Like they underlaid a CAD plan and it was rasterized. It was so hard to read. I don't know. Okay.
So, you know, we're thinking about drafting a letter. Do people have an idea what they would want to put on this letter, or what? I mean, we can't go through, you know, we don't like the placement of doors. We don't, you know, certain things. We need to be general as to what we think the issues are.
Well, Matt,
for
that's
me,
sorry to interrupt, but that's why I read that whole part, just to say that if we're in that area of what I read through, those items.
Safety, drainage, parking, traffic.
Yep.
Mhm.
I mean, Matt, that's really all we usually speak on, correct?
yeah, we speak on site issues.
Right.
What we see with, you know, to me, one of my major concerns is how much fill is going to be brought into the site.
Mhm.
Where this fill is going to be coming from, how it's going to get onto the site. And then after it's constructed, yeah, snow storage, snow control, which has not really even been thought of in a lot of projects that have been done recently. After looking at some of them, there's no snow management plan. This is New England after all, and you need to deal with this stuff. So this is a site that you're going to be paving a lot more of it now, it looks like, and a lot more runoff. I understand why you need to raise the grade. You need to have some infiltration, but it's, you know, it's looking like they're raising the site, I don't know, 6-7 feet. It's hard to really tell, to tell you the truth. So I can't see what the existing grades are out there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we could meet and do a quick bullet point of what items we think should be addressed, and we can send it to them, and hopefully they, you know, they take notice of it, that's all.
Yep,
So-
and thanks, Matt. We, the previous letters we've sent, I've watched the ZBA meetings, whether it was live or recorded, and they do read our letters, and it does impact their decision-making. And proof of that is the Wakefield Ave Water Street property that we wrote our last letter for. They read it, and the Board of Appeals acted on it and pushed that whole project another couple meetings out and asked the architect and engineer and designers to come back to come up with a better plan, because it wasn't happening. So the 22nd or the 26th, either is fine for me.
I'm fine with either one too, as long as it's, we're kind of clear and concise and
Mhm.
deal with basically that issue. I'm fine with that. Obviously, it'll have to be a full meeting where we have everything, but basically have that as the main agenda and get to it and move on.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Joanne, time is 22nd or 26th better for you?
I think I can do either one.
Okay, and we're talking obviously 7 p.m. Wait, we can have this at City Hall. We have enough we have under the amount of people in Zoom. At Town Hall, sorry, I said city, didn't I? Megan, the 22nd or the 26th?
Yep, both work. Do you want me to pick one?
No, we can ask Erin and Susan too. Erin?
Either one works for me. I don't know. I haven't been asked or told yet. By chance, I have to go to town council meeting that night.
That's true.
Right?
Town council's on Monday night.
I haven't been. I'm just saying.
True. And
So
is
the 22nd would be better.
also on Monday?
Huh?
Is Conservation Commission also on Monday?
They're on Thursdays.
They're on Thursdays. Okay, thanks. Susan, any preference on the 22nd or the 26th?
No.
No,
No.
I'd say go with the 22nd.
I'm good with the 22nd.
Okay.
Susan, make it happen. 22nd.
22nd. Okay.
All right.
And that'll give them more time to review too.
Right. Yep.
Okay,
Give us
great.
more time to write it.
I'll start getting my questions ready.
Well, yeah, and if
Send them over.
I think the idea of please have your questions prepared, and maybe if you have your questions prepared and sent to me and Susan, like on Monday, the 19th, that will give us a couple of days and that could be sent out to the board. That way everybody knows what everybody's thinking about, and we can all prepare by looking at that page number and that specific item, and we can all be so educated on our decision making.
Okay, happy to do that.
Yeah. Okay. And you know what? If you don't get to it, that's fine too. But if you do want to have some input and some questions that we can all do some homework on, let's have it in by the 19th, end of day, to Susan and me.
I won't be in my office on Monday, the holiday.
There's no marathon. It's not a holiday. Sorry. You won't be. That's why I said by the end of the day, Monday. That way Tuesday we'll have them all and we can get them out.
Perfect.
Yep.
Okay,
Any other items not anticipated?
I have an item.
Yes, Megan?
It was in the packet of information that was sent to us regarding 17 Park Street.
Yes.
It's more of like a clerical question. The location to be discussed is 17 Park Street, but in all of the plan documents, it says 12 Park Street. And
17 Park.
I assume that should probably be corrected.
Good job. I didn't pick that up because it's in the forms. It's 17.
Yeah, like in the submission, it says 17 Park Street. And on the cover page, it says 17 Park Street, but then all the plans say 12 Park Street. So
Yes.
Are the plans right, or is this submission, is the form right?
I would go with the forms and the submission from the ZBA, because that's what's filed. I would say possibly Cornerstone Architects has the wrong address. There's also the possibility that this property could have more than one address, but it's unusual that one would be odd and one would be even.
Yeah.
Good detective work.
Was confused there and thought, I don't know.
Well, we could send that in a letter to the ZBA as well before the 28th. So Megan, bring that up again at our next meeting, and that could be something we can add that we did notice.
Yeah, and all my other items were in regards to questions that I had on these 200 to 400, so I will put those together.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did you see the pictures of it, the property? Of,
Wait,
on the special permit narrative of 218 Vernon? Was that the one, 218 Vernon? Yeah.
oh, yeah.
Yep.
I'm gunning for them for a new garage.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
That
It's,
that is old.
I love looking through that stuff because it's always like, wow, look at that. That's a good reason to build a new one. Okay.
Yep.
Any other items not anticipated? All right, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second it?
Okay, roll call vote. I agree. Yes. Joanne, you made the motion. Do you agree to adjourn? Yes. Matt Lowry,
Yes.
Megan Menasali.
Yes.
All right, Erin, I won't ask you this time. I was really tired. All right, thank you, everybody. Really appreciate your time. And this is, we're going places. I feel like we're going in the right direction. Thank you very much.